What is your message to Cowboys fans? Because we have seen this team reach certain ceilings during the regular season, and it's been tough for you guys to play that same level in the playoffs when it matters most. What do you think will be the key to you guys unlocking that ability to play your best in the biggest moments?
I don't necessarily say that we aren't playing to our abilities, because there are close games, there are stretch games. But I do think there's tendencies, right? And if you see the Super Bowl this year is the 49ers didn't make that many mistakes all year, right? And then to get into that game, it's penalties, it's fumbles, or whatever it may be. You can control penalties, control that, but it's how you react and how you overcome it. And I think we could do a better job and try to control those tendencies that happen. And that's why I'm excited about the more accountability that's bringing to our team, because if you see something happening, eventually it needs to stop, right? And I would say something I've noticed in my 3 years is that the things that carried from regular season carried to postseason, and it was just never adjusted.
Okay, we got a little bit more of this clip we're going to watch, because it's going to lead us into our next segment on the Dak Attack Show today. But Micah Parsons is dropping a bomb right here, and I think this went over a lot of people's heads, because I haven't seen anybody actually discussing this. Micah Parsons, when he was talking about more accountability and being excited about that accountability and issues and tendencies being overlooked, make no mistake about it, that was directly aimed at Dan Quinn. When he was talking about more accountability coming in, he's referring to Mike Zimmer and his coaching style and his no-nonsense style, and the fact that if Mike Zimmer sees a player repeatedly doing something, that dude's going to get pulled off the field. That's exactly what Micah Parsons is referring to right here. Dan Quinn had more of a laid-back approach to it. We saw the same suspects, the usual suspects, game after game, have a stupid penalty, whether it was offsides or a defensive holding or something silly, and nothing seemed to happen. And then those same tendencies came back to bite us at the worst time every single year, right? Micah is referring directly to this, but then he kind of starts to go into his teammates a little bit. He talks about dropping the dead weight. He actually brings up a specific player's name.
And that's something to me that I speak about, but I think it goes missed oftentimes, how much things carry. If you don't drop the dead weight, you'll sink right with it. That's just something I think can help us, because I don't think people are better than us. I don't think people are doing more. Because look at, we're about to get a stop that first drive. Instead of 7, what we get? A penalty. And then we're 3rd and 5 on the goal line. Instead of that, what do we get? A penalty. So it's the penalties, it's the little things. That's the difference between a champion and a loser. And I don't care what no one says. I don't care how far you go. If you're not holding a trophy, you're a loser. I don't care if you're an NFC champion. People don't count accolades for NFC champion. They count those for a Super Bowl champion. That's the only thing that holds weight in this game.
Just to be clear, that was a direct shot at the 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm just letting y'all know, man. Y'all know damn well who he was referring to right there. And y'all know what fan base that was aimed at. He wanted Philly fans to feel that one.
We got to drop the dead weight, man. And that's what I mean when it comes to culture. Because some people say, oh, it's fine. I make this amount of plays. I do this amount of things. But in reality, it's not fine. It's not okay. We got to be better. We got to cut the dead weight. We got to culturally hold everyone accountable and fix these things.
Y'all see what I'm saying here? I promise y'all, I'm not pulling stuff out of thin air. He specifically just said, people will say, I'm making this amount of plays, I'm doing this. He's not talking about fans. He's not talking about prognosticators. He's not talking about onlookers, people that's talking about the game. He's talking about someone playing the game right there. Like, he's talking about an attitude that he recognizes on his team that is holding his team back. Who are the guys that are saying, the mistakes that I'm making are fine because I'm doing this? Who are those guys? Because in that case, I know a lot of fans are going to be split. I know people are going to be split in the comments. I'm already predicting it. All I can say is keep it respectful for our players down there. Don't be calling dudes crazy names and stuff. But I agree with Micah Parsons, bro. I agree with him. Penalties and the boneheaded mistakes are the number one thing that have plagued the Cowboys year after year after year. It's not that other teams are just so much better than ours. This year, the Packers, they just completely outgame planned us. Our coaches got us beat before we even took the field this year. Let's be real. Both sides of the ball, and then our players just kind of made it even worse. Both sides of the ball. But year after year, where you go back to the LA Rams game from a few years back, and there were silly penalties which led to longer sustained drives where they continuously bludgeoned us with that run game. Or the San Francisco 49ers game where you get a damn defensive holding on the defensive end, Randy Gregory, that extends the play. Like, it's really mind-blowing mistakes that happen with this team at the worst times that really come back to bite us in the butt. And like Micah's about to refer to, even this year in the Green Bay Packers game, before any scores were had, before it was still 0-0, they could have held the Packers to 0 points on the first drive, but then boneheaded penalties happened. And I'm gonna go ahead and let Micah finish telling you the rest, because this is where he actually bring up a name, bruh.
I mean, look at the Eagles game when we lost in Philly. What happened? Holding on the 2. Now we're back 30 yards. Then it's offsides, and then it's, holding again. I mean, it's just so many things that we're such a better team than we're putting on. But it's just like, who's going to hold it accountable? How do you guys really want to win? Like, these are things you should be fixing in camp, but it's carrying all year. So to me, people may overlook it, but those are the things that make you a champion, I mean, even the Bills game, right? D-Law, and I'm not saying D-Law's fault, but we get a ruffled pouch now, 7 points. It's just so many moments throughout the season. I'm like, bro, these are the things that's changing the whole thing in this game. These guys aren't better than us. They just got more momentum, and then now you're trying to catch up. And when you're trying to catch up and chase, what does that do? Produce turnovers or produce force instead of just playing your game. So that's just my perspective about this.
Oh, mamma mia. So, first things first, I do not think that we have any guys currently on our roster right now that are complete boneheads and are going to be a detriment to the team. The only dude that I kind of am concerned about as far as from a discipline standpoint, that's all I'm discussing right now, is on the field as a football player from a discipline standpoint based off of what we have seen from these guys in the past. I'm not trying to create any narratives about any of these players, guys, but Sam Williams spotlight is going to be on you this season, brother. You had a couple of really bad penalties, not only on the defensive side of the ball, but also on special teams last year. You really, really, really got to clean that up if you expect to see any playing time this season, especially with the addition of Marshawn Kneeland at your position, bro. So I'm just saying, Sam Williams, you really, really, really got to clean that up. But what we're about to do today is actually take a closer look at the games that Micah Parsons mentioned right there, with the Buffalo Bills game, the first Philadelphia Eagles game, and that Green Bay Packers game. We're going to take a look at the actual penalties that took place and who they were committed by, and see if we can see a trend of players whose names are popping up on these types of lists in games that are important and in games that we end up losing, right? So let's go ahead and take a closer look at this before I give you my full thoughts on this interview by Micah Parsons. All right, so first we're going to start with the most painful game, get it out the way. Green Bay Packers game. I already have all the penalties sorted. Dallas had roughly about 7 to 8 penalties against them in this particular game. I think it was 7 penalties against them in this game. Illegal contact, Deron Bland. This happened in the first quarter at 14-minute and 22-second mark. Neutral zone infraction just cannot happen. This is just a mental mistake right here. A neutral zone infraction penalty, bro, that is probably one of the worst penalties that you can possibly get as a defensive player, because that is just a concentration. That is just a lack of focus. That's a lack of paying attention to the details and not knowing that you're lined up in the freaking neutral zone. So guess who this was committed by? DeMarcus Lawrence. Remember, we just heard Micah Parsons bring up his name, and D-Law was the dude at the end of the season that was talking about, oh, we were tired. We were, And D-Law has also been a guy that's been the leader or the captain of these defenses, man, that have been making boneheaded mistakes year after year after year, in the Rams game, in the 49ers game. Hey, bro, I'm just going to say this, man. We got another couple videos coming off of this full interview that Micah did, and I implore you guys to stick around, subscribe, so you can finish getting my breakdown of these interviews, because I'm going to break them down like nobody else can, right? But I'm telling y'all, DeMarcus Lawrence, fan favorite, right? He's been present, and he's been at the core of a lot of the snafus the Cowboys have suffered over the years, whether it be the whole hot boys crap with the defensive line from years back, and then they get a whole bunch of hot penalties at the wrong time, or he's saying just some of the most weak stuff I've ever heard in my life on ESPN, or he's saying something to the media that he's not backing up. In his older age, he's kind of calmed down a little bit with the stuff he's saying in the media, the more experience he's getting, but D-Law appears on too many of these lists, is all I'm gonna say, right? Fair catch interference. This was ridiculous. This was in the first quarter. Sam Williams, 15-yard penalty right there, man. Offensive holding, Jalen Tolbert. Ineligible downfield pass, Tyler Biadasz. All right, so some of that dead weight has been cut already. Tyler Biadasz is gone, right? So that's the Packers game. Let's look at the Dallas versus Buffalo game, right? Dallas had pretty much all the penalties in this game. Dallas had 6 penalties. Buffalo only had 2. Look, the first penalty, the first player about to call in the first quarter, roughing the passer, DeMarcus Lawrence, first quarter with 9 minutes left on the clock, man. This was the roughing the passer that was kind of sketchy, though. I will say that I got to stick up for D-Law right here. He almost kind of like got baited into it a little bit. It was like, how do you expect him to stop from tackling him at that moment, right? Then we got the unnecessary roughness from Zach Martin, offensive holding from Tyler Smith. Again, roughing the kicker, another special teams penalty from Sam Williams. Unnecessary roughness from Javon Curse, and Curse is not coming back either, but again, y'all see is a couple of names on these lists that keep popping up in these games. Now let's look at the first Philadelphia Eagles game that we lost, and holy crap, look at the penalties that were called in this freaking game, y'all. Oh my gosh! Dallas had 10 penalties, and it looked like Philly might have had more penalties called against them. But most of Philly's penalties were called in the fourth quarter, though. So it looked like they did a little bit of making up in that game to me, because Philly only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 penalties called before the fourth quarter. As soon as the fourth quarter came, they started throwing flags all over the place. Dallas had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 penalties called before the fourth quarter, and our penalties were more impactful as well. The yardage on ours was absolutely ridiculous. The yardage on Philly's penalties were like 5 yards, 0 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards. The biggest was 10. Ours was 17, 10, 15, 10. So we were getting like crazy penalties called against us, and let's see whose names are popping up. Illegal block above the waist, Sean McKeon. Defensive holding, Curse. Face mask, Rashawn Evans, dead weight, we got rid of him. Offensive holding, Luke Schoonmaker. Defensive offside, Jonathan Hankins. Defensive pass interference, Gilmore. Defensive holding, Damian Wilson. Illegal formation, Chuma Edoga. False start, Tyler Smith. Just a lot of silly penalties, y'all. And that is what Micah Parsons is discussing. Now, how do I feel about what we heard out of this clip? For one, I told y'all so. I've been saying since the very beginning, Dan Quinn has played a huge role as far as the ineptitude of this Dallas Cowboys team, and in the times that we see them underperform, how we've seen the defense melt away at the end of the season, the discipline issues, the lack of focus it seems like the team has at times. Dan Quinn did not do what he needed to do. Michael just told us right there. These issues have been present since training camp, and they don't get addressed. Micah told us right there, y'all. So I'm just saying, I completely understand and agree with him when he's talking about that from the coaching perspective, because if they don't feel like it's an actual consequence to them making the same mistakes over and over again, then they're less inclined to focus on not making that damn mistake. Now, I get you don't want your guys playing with the back of their mind like, oh, I can't make a mistake, but you do have to play with a level of discipline. You need to practice with discipline, so that way you don't have to think about having discipline in the game, because the way that you've practiced and prepared for the game has already instilled the discipline in your technique, in your foundation. That is what Micah is talking about. Those issues should have been getting addressed way in training camp, and that's why this team is about to get a rude awakening when Mike Zimmer hits his mode, man. Mike Zimmer's about to come out there and shell shock a lot of these dudes, because a lot of these dudes have been in this comfortable Dallas Cowboys system where they go to training camp, you know, they go hear their coaches talk a little smack, and then they go home. But Mike Zimmer, bro, I'm telling y'all, this is about to be a whole different type of camp for the defense this particular offseason. All right, so I completely agree with that. Now, as far as the dead weight comments, because that's really what I want to address right here. The dead weight comments, it sounds harsh, it really sounds harsh, and he didn't put an actual name to the dead weight comments, even though he brought up D-Law's name, but he was kind of giving an example. He was trying to call back to an example. He wasn't calling D-Law's name to like be like, hey, it's D-Law. He wasn't trying to do that, but it has been D-Law in way too many situations. He's been great. He was our best run stopper all last season. I get that. I am specifically talking about the issues that Micah is talking about right now. You're supposed to be the defensive captain, the defensive leader of the team. You've been here for almost 10 years, bro. You've been here for 10 years. You're supposed to be the guy that's holding dudes accountable. You're supposed to be the dude that we should see getting in people's grills and jacking them up on the sideline. Like, get your shit together. Don't get another freaking penalty, bro. You're supposed to be that guy. You're supposed to be that guy. We can't see your name popping up when we're looking at NFLpenalties.com and we're looking at the different games and stuff. We can't be seeing your name pop up game after game after game after game. Notice whose name we didn't see in any of those games we just looked at was Micah Parsons. So yes, he can speak on this because he's not the one displaying the lack of discipline in the biggest moments, right? I agree with this as well, bro. At some point, I get it as fans. It's easy for us to be like, oh, I don't want him talking about this. I don't want to hear his dude speaking on everything. I get it. But at some point, when this man is telling us what the actual issues are so that fans can actually direct their attention to the right things, you gotta listen. The actual issues has been the team's discipline, their lack of focus, the preparation. It's been the mental aspect. Before they even get on the field, they're getting their asses beat before they get on the field because they have no focus. Remember, we saw dudes getting ready to go to a damn after party, a victory party, before they had even played the Green Bay Packers game last season. I made a video on my channel. So y'all can't sit there and tell me that what he's saying isn't true, right? So I'm very, very, very interested to see how this training camp shakes out for the Cowboys. I suspect we may see some dudes hit the doghouse that we may not have expected to see hit the doghouse. Mike Zimmer is going to truly give the defense a true opportunity for everyone to compete for a starting position. I think there's only probably like 2 spots on the entire defense that are guaranteed. Everything else is probably up for grabs if we're being real, right? And I absolutely love it. I absolutely love that. But we got a lot more to dissect from this particular interview. Again, be sure to subscribe to the Dak Attack Show. Follow me on IG, X, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys on the next one. And we steal them same old Cowboys.
Calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, am I still them boys? Y'all usually check on me. Listen. I'm still them boys. Hey! Woo! Oh, shut up, my boy. Hey! I'm still them boys.